I'm fucking high as fuck right now.
I don't know if you fuckers knew, but I have really been about that life since I was 16 years old.
I'm fucking tripping, dude. Like, yo, whoa. I haven't smoked for like a month and like 2 weeks because I got caught. I smoked again. I ordered some AK-47 from California through the Silk Road. My eyes feel really low and they're kind of red. I don't know. Oh shit, dude. They're freaking red as fuck.
Hello and welcome to the Cole Memo. We're getting started a little bit early, but in case you missed the memo, we go live every Tuesday at 7:15 p.m. Central Time. If you want to make sure you don't miss the shows in the future, go to colememo.com/YouTube and subscribe. Welcome. We got an awesome show today. We're going to be talking about where Illinois cannabis tax revenue goes. Reading an op-ed from Representative Sonia Harper, who says Illinois promised cannabis equity, but the work isn't finished. We're going to be talking about the state of enforcement in Illinois. Illinois is the #1 state for cannabis arrests. We have the most arrests, the highest number of arrests. So in that way, we are the highest, but not in a good way. We'll talk about that in a little bit. You guys all know that I love talking about that topic because I think that the criminalization of cannabis should end if we're saying that it should be legal, right? I'll do a little bit of follow-up on a lawsuit that accused a big cannabis company here in the state of Illinois for exposing protected patient data and more. But before I do that, let's talk about that little. I hope you enjoyed the intro. That was me at approximately 16 years old. And some people that commented, I posted that on our Instagram page, or one of my Instagram pages earlier today. And somebody commented, you got weed off the Silk Road. People were saying, man, that's major ball knowledge. Yeah, I've got major league ball knowledge. Yeah, I've got so much knowledge of the game. No, but jokes aside, people were like, did you have Bitcoin? It's like, yeah, I had a lot of Bitcoin. I had a lot of Bitcoin, probably over 10. And you know what I did with that Bitcoin? I did what Bitcoin was made for. I spent that Bitcoin on drugs. See, these kids nowadays, they buy Bitcoin and they turn around and sell it for like, a lot of money. We used it to buy drugs off of the internet. That's what Bitcoin was made for. Now it's an investment. It's weird. I mean, look, it's ingenious. I'm not, I'm not hating the player. It's just a weird game is all I'm saying. It's not the game I thought we were playing with Bitcoin. Anyway, yeah, for sure. Used to get weed off of the Bitcoin, off of the Silk Road. So a little bit of drug history for you. It'd be really cool to get Ross Ulbricht on the show, founder, creator of the Silk Road, but that's something we can shoot for in the future. So it was just recently 420. We're going to talk about something that relates to Illinois history. Let's get this episode of the Cole Memo started. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
Good old Silk Road indeed. Yes, folks. So it was just 420, and I know everybody has been celebrating that or was celebrating that. Just a reminder, tomorrow, since today is 421, tomorrow is 422, which means it's 422. So you can always celebrate if you missed out on celebrations yesterday. Moving on from that, in case you didn't know, it was also the anniversary of Hash Wednesday. I was told by some students that are students of the University of Illinois that are sort of, carrying on the tradition. In case you're wondering what that is, well, here we go. You might be wondering, what is Hash Wednesday?
Hash Wednesday when I was in college was the one day that you were able to smoke weed legally, in a sense, where the police, the campus police, professors, nobody cared for one day. and it was in the Quad. And the Quad is a big, beautiful area of grass surrounded by gorgeous architectural buildings of all the classrooms. Quad's a great place to lay out in the sun in the summertime, chill and whatever, and hang with your friends. But you can never smoke weed out there. You couldn't. But this day you could. And not only could you, but hundreds, thousands of students, and I'm sure educators, professors, and I'm sure many of the community of Urbana and Champaign, everybody came together for this one day where originally apparently it started as a protest, and there was many they were called hash bashes around the country, and it was insane because everyone appreciated it and no one frowned upon it. So it was a great experience. One of the fondest memories I had in Champaign actually was Hash Wednesday. Pure fun. That's what college should be sometimes, not always serious.
Learn more from the people who fought for your right to party at colememo.com/UIUC.
Today's 420 Day. It's the unofficial holiday for those who use marijuana. If you weren't aware, Illinois has some of the highest marijuana taxes in the country, ranging up to 25%. And it added up to a $281 million windfall for the state last year. And in a very timely fashion, Illinois Policy, nonprofit Chicago think tank, is tracking where the millions of dollars in revenue generated from that tax actually goes. Dylan Sharkey is here to break it all down for us in his reporting to show us where the money is going. Dylan, thank you so much for being here. At first, if you can remind everyone, because it feels like a long time ago, when this tax was first implemented, there were some initial promises related to where this money is going to be going. Where is this? What was that promise?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that we're in year 7 of legal marijuana in Illinois. And for the state, it's spent a little over $1.5 billion since then. And so where is this money going? Illinois is unique, and compared to other states, a lot of our money, millions and millions of dollars, goes just right back into the state's general revenue fund. And what does that mean? It means it goes into a black hole, and lawmakers can spend it however they like, and people are kind of kept in the dark on where the money actually ends up. Some of it goes to great causes, but for a lot of it, we actually don't know.
So some of the causes I've heard, I don't know, the money that it's appropriated towards that I've heard of is R3 funds. The Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office also has a breakdown of where a percentage of the tax dollars go. I might display that in a moment. But I thought this segment was interesting, so let's continue to watch. Here we go.
Yeah, because in a lot of other states, you hear, oh, it's going to be used for public safety, you're going to use for education, or it's going to be used for mental health programs.
And again, I'm about to pull it up, but I think there is money appropriated towards public safety. There is money appropriated towards education, but we'll pull those figures up if I'm remembering them correctly in a moment.
So you're saying in Illinois, there was really sort of this vague promise, and did that surprise you during what you found?
Well, some of it does go to good causes. For instance, if you're driving by on the highway, you might see catchy billboards or like drive high, get a DUI, or something like public safety awareness, or for the state police who are affected, in their jobs by marijuana being legal in Illinois. So it goes to noble things, but for a large chunk of it, it goes to pet projects for lawmakers, it goes to pensions, and it goes to a lot of other things that really aren't related to cannabis being legal in Illinois.
Well, that could be concerning for a lot of people. And we were talking about how Illinois has some of the highest taxes when it comes to marijuana and how you compare it to some other states. In fact, I used to live in Oklahoma, and they have a medical program, and there are fewer barriers to entry, including some of the fees and some of the licenses that go into everything. But it really probably has some unintended consequences when Illinois is competing against other neighboring states that have has a marijuana program.
Yeah, exactly right. Michigan, Missouri, so that that eats into our revenue for sure. When people can just go over there and they can buy plenty and save money on it. But going back to those promises you talked about, when we first legalized marijuana, Governor J.B. Pritzker promised that Illinois would be the most equitable in the way it distributes licenses for people who want to open up a dispensary, open up a business. He wanted to emphasize people who are from communities most harmed by drugs being illegal as a form of equity. But the process rolling out was a disaster for some people. Applicants waited months. Some court cases are still in limbo 7 years later. Applicants who had perfect scores were kind of hung dry, and other bigger businesses with more money were able to get in and get a huge head start on the market rollout.
So what you found in the reporting is that anyone.
And that was, yeah, I agree with that take. Let's take a brief break to look at this. So here you can see this on the screen right now, and you can Google this yourself. Oh, this drives me nuts. Whatever. You can see learn how cannabis tax dollars are spent. This is on the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office website, and you can actually see how the figures are broken down. It does look like a good chunk goes to reinvestment, which I don't know what that means, but maybe there's a breakdown here. But you can see the administrative expenditures. So there's money going to IDFPR, IDOA, ISP, IDPH, IDOR, CJA, and DCEO for administrative expenditures because they oversee different things in the cannabis industry, and they have to be able to staff people for that. There's there's money distributed elsewhere. I mentioned the R3 program. There's the budget stabilization fund. I think maybe that was his point. The general revenue fund, which again I think his point was that money can be used anywhere. And there's some other distributions, including drug treatment and education. Cannabis expungement funds, local government distributive funds, and I guess other funds. So you can read about that and more at the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office's website. Let's round out this report that we were watching.
So what you found in the reporting is that anyone who tended to have a lot of money, they had the advantage to get some of those licenses over little guys. So there were significant barriers to entry into this new market.
Right. That's exactly right. And that happened in other states. Illinois is not the only place where that happened. But the difference was you promised the exact opposite when it was first starting.
And you also highlighted concerns about transparency. What's missing from the state's reporting that makes it difficult for taxpayers to track how that money is being used here?
Well, other states are just more specific about where it goes. So, for going back to that general revenue fund, a big chunk of it, hundreds of millions, I think it's close to roughly 40% of marijuana taxes just goes to, they call it the budget stabilization fund. So some of it goes to local governments, which is great because, they're affected by it too, and they need the money. But at the state level, state lawmakers, it's just a very broad category. Like Michigan and Missouri, they'll tell you 6% goes to scholarships. This percent goes to the police. They are much more specific on where the causes go to, so it's ending up in a good place.
You have to wonder once the program is going to be 10 years old, similar to Colorado, they ran into some barriers or at least some saturation in the market. Have you seen over that 7-year period that there's been sort of saturation in the market, or there's been strongest, survival of the fittest when it comes to this, relatively new industry?
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge moneymaker, no doubt, but it's peaked. It's really not growing much more in Illinois. And so for state lawmakers, it'd be irresponsible for them to keep expecting more money to come in when it's not. And it's kind of plateaued at the levels we're at right now.
Well, I know you're going to be watching this very closely, and certainly we will. After all, it is 420 Day. Dylan Sharkey, thank you so much for giving us some insight into the marijuana business. We appreciate it.
All right, folks. Yeah, if you're just tuning in, cheers. Happy late 420. What's up, John Voight? Thanks for tuning in. We're going to keep things moving. I'm curious what you think about that piece. I definitely thought it was interesting. I wonder, now he's inspired me to take a deeper look, because I just shared that website with CROO, and it seemed to show how some money was dispersed, but to the point that you saw when I looked at it. I was like, what does reinvestment mean, or whatever it said? So yeah, I'm sure there's certainly more to dig into there. And if you want to dig into that, I shared that, but maybe also check out the annual cannabis reports, which are available on my website. We'll be right back. Lots more interesting stories to cover tonight. We're going to get into a few that I'll have linked in the show notes. There's a really interesting listen. Check it out. I'll have it linked in the show notes. It's Chicago Weed Culture, 6 years on from legalization by WBEZ Chicago. I think some people that have been on this podcast even call into the broadcast. There's other people I've never heard of that call into the broadcast, and they kind of talk about the effect that cannabis legalization has had on them. And so it's interesting conversation for sure. So check that out. Also, there was a few different reports that came out from the Chicago Tribune. And we're going to read one of them now. So this first one is an op-ed by somebody that actually had a town hall yesterday. I'm working on getting my hands on it, and I'll share more information with you when I can. I heard it was recorded, and I'm just waiting to get a copy. Representative Sonia Harper recently wrote into the Chicago Tribune, and she wrote, "Illinois promised the nation a model for equitable cannabis legalization. The market is thriving, but the equity promise remains unfinished. When the General Assembly passed the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, legalization was intended not just to create a profitable new industry, but also to begin repairing the damage caused by the decades of failed drug policy that devastated Black communities and other neighborhoods across our state. Legalization was supposed to come with equity. Illinois built one of the most ambitious equity frameworks in the country. We created social equity licenses for entrepreneurs from communities harmed by prohibition. We invested in community and reinvestment programs. We moved aggressively to clear criminal records that had followed thousands of Illinois residents for years. Those were important steps. But it is time for an honest assessment of where we succeeded and where we have fallen short. There is no question the cannabis industry itself has flourished. In the most recent full year of reporting, Illinois cannabis dispensaries sold more than $2 billion in products, generating over $490 million in tax revenue for the state. Illinois has generated billions in cannabis sales. The harder question is whether the communities most harmed by prohibition are seeing ownership in the industry that replaced it. Despite Illinois equity framework, Black-owned cannabis businesses still represent only a small share of licensed operators, even though Black communities were disproportionately targeted during the war on drugs. That gap is not accidental. Too many equity applicants spent years navigating lawsuits, regulatory delays, and shifting timelines just to receive licenses. Many who finally secured licenses ran into another barrier that was never fully solved: capital. Opening a cannabis business can require millions of dollars in startup costs once you factor in real estate, build out, security requirements, and compliance expenses. Traditional banks remain largely unavailable because cannabis remains federally illegal. Without access to financing, some equity license holders were forced into complicated investment deals that diluted their ownership or control. That was never the goal. Equity cannot mean handing someone a license and wishing them luck in a billion-dollar industry. Real equity requires real access to capital, access to markets, and access to infrastructure necessary to compete. Illinois must also confront another reality. The early structure of the market allowed existing companies to expand quickly, while social equity applicants were still waiting for their opportunity to enter the industry. By the time many equity operators were able to open their doors, much of the market had already matured and consolidated. Public policy should be judged by outcomes, not intentions, and that standard applies even to the laws we pass ourselves. Accountability matters here as well. The state created oversight structures to track equity progress, including the Cannabis Equity Commission, yet that body has struggled to meet regularly. When the entity designed to monitor outcomes and advise policymakers is not consistently convening, it raises legitimate questions about whether Illinois is fully committed to evaluating its own progress. None of this erases the progress Illinois has made. Record expungements have allowed hundreds of thousands of people to move forward without the burden of past cannabis convictions. Community reinvestment programs are supporting important work in neighborhoods that were hardest hit by the war on drugs. But if equity was the promise, the metric cannot simply be sales or tax revenue. The real question is ownership. How many cannabis businesses are owned and controlled by communities most harmed by prohibition? How much wealth is being created in those communities? If the answers are limited, then our work is not finished. Illinois still has the opportunity to strengthen the next phase of legalization by expanding access to patient capital for equity operators, protecting meaningful ownership and social equity licenses, and ensuring cannabis revenue continues to be reinvested where the harm occurred. Illinois showed the country how to legalize cannabis through the legislative process. Now, we must show the country how to finish the work we started. Because if equity remains an aspiration instead of an outcome, legalization will have created a successful industry, but missed the opportunity to deliver justice. That was written once again by State Representative Sonia Harper, a Democrat from Chicago representing the 6th District. Representative Harper, I apologize if I botched, some of your op-ed. I thought it was well written and well said. I think one of the points that I believe Representative Harper would agree with me on is that while, when we talk about repairing the damage caused by decades of failed drug policy, I think one thing that's usually missing from that conversation is ending those failed drug policies, because they are alive and well. And that's going to be our main story for the night. We'll get into it right now. Folks, a new report from Marijuana Policy Project is putting Illinois back under the microscope, and not in a good way. According to the report, Illinois is now the only state that legalized cannabis and then saw arrests go up afterward. We've covered this on the show. It's not flat. It's not unclear. It is measurably higher. The data shows that on average, about 15 people are still being arrested every day in Illinois for cannabis-related offenses. So when you zoom out, Illinois now has the highest cannabis arrest rate per capita of any legalization state in the country. In this segment, I'll go through some of what the report says, how it lines up with what we've been covering on the show, and why policies like the state's vehicle code may be playing a bigger role in this than some might realize. Once again, a reminder in case you're tuning in now, because I see we have just about 15 people tuned in. Thank you all for tuning in. We got 10 from YouTube, 4 from Twitter. If you haven't yet, smash that like button. You can check out all my content at colememo.com. We go live every Tuesday at 7:15 p.m. You notice we're live a bit early tonight. We started the show early. Let's get back to the data. Let's talk about it. Using data from the FBI Crime Explorer and information compiled by the ACLU, Illinois saw a 3.4% increase in cannabis possession arrests after legalization. And like I say, it's not just like a blip. Illinois is now leading the country among legalization states in arrests per capita, with about 54 arrests for every 100,000 residents. To put that in perspective, 3 states that haven't even legalized are all seeing fewer cannabis arrests per capita than Illinois. And let me pull up the article to get those states here in a moment. I just thought that was super interesting. States that haven't even legalized technically have a lower per capita arrest rate than Illinois, a state that is legalized. According to the report, Illinois is making well over 5,000 possession-related arrests each year. And as Karen O'Keefe puts it, the state is expunging old records while simultaneously creating thousands of new ones. Records that can impact jobs, housing, and professional licensing. This is what I say. How can you say you're addressing the harm of the war on drugs if you're simultaneously continuing the harm of the war on drugs? This is what this goddamn show is about. There's 15 comments rolling in, folks. Wow. Lots of people are commenting. Oh, it's our friend that goes absolutely wild in the chat. Welcome back. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And yeah, that's just nuts. Let me try to find this data here in a moment. I'm also going to cover Illinois yesterday. It's some headlines have been like kind of going crazy because Illinois awarded $32 million to cannabis companies. So we might read that article here in just a moment before we close out the show. This is one that was interesting because I've actually gone to this store. So somebody flagged this to my attention. I don't know if they want me to name them on air. Hold on, let me spark up. The headline is, police respond to reported unlicensed dispensary at Champaign storefront. I've been to this place. Great place. Awesome. Deli style cannabis sales. Pretty cool. At least in my experience. I have seen look, sometimes these shops, they sell like snowballs or whatever that shit is. Like it looks crazy. My thing is like the dispensary sells moon rocks. And I think like that's basically what they're trying to emulate. I'm not into either one, so I'm just not going to buy that stuff. I'm just looking for some good flour, and I was able to find some when I went there. But it was reported by Shambana Today, which apparently is a local outlet. Props to them. They say Champaign police responded Monday morning to a business on West Bradley Avenue after reports of a possible unlicensed cannabis dispensary, according to a video circulating on social media. The video, Shambana Today says, posted at 10 a.m. in a local Facebook group, shows officers outside of Euphoria where they can be heard describing the location as an allegedly unlicensed dispensary. Lieutenant Aaron Lack, who oversees the investigation division of the Champaign Police Department, released the following statement on Monday, April 20th. Fucking losers. At approximately 10 a.m., the Champaign Police Department served a search warrant at a business in the 1700 block of West Bradley and Champaign. Detectives were assisted in the investigation by agents from the Illinois Department of Revenue. No arrests were made. Interesting. And the investigation remains ongoing. That's interesting. By approximately 3 p.m., the storefront appeared closed and locked. Several individuals were seen approaching the business and leaving after finding the front door shut. One of those individuals, named Cole Preston. No, I'm joking. That's not what the article says. I only went there once. It was kind of cool. So it was like they had shelves of product where you can like see it. And then I was like, yeah, I want to smell that, and that. And they're like, cool. And so they go and they grab like a sample jar and I like smell it. And I'm like, I just want those two. Like, how much do you want? And I was like, give me like, I asked them the prices. I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't bad. And you could just use your credit card. So it's like, whatever. And yeah, bought like, I think a quarter or something like that. But it was cool. Like you placed your order in and then you got like a ticket, like a deli. And then like some dude was like weighing it up in the back. You could see him. Whatever. It kind of reminded me of the good old days buying weed. I just thought, like whenever I go to the plug's house, like usually they have a few different strains, and that's what this kind of reminded me of, except it was a storefront. So sucks that they seem to have gotten shut down. I think I read that there's another location in the town, but Just interesting to say the least, and I thought I'd cover that. So I'll just say, that last story that I covered, I'm going to be writing about this in an outlet coming soon that we're working on getting the article published. But it's kind of data that I've published in the past in January of this year on the website. Check it out, colememo.com. Early January, I posted a summary of an Illinois annual cannabis report. And in it, you'll find that they say that they've had trouble prosecuting cannabis charges because people have been saying like, oh, this is hemp. Look, they just said like no arrests were made, but they did a raid. And the investigation remains ongoing. But like back in the day, before hemp happened, it would have been like arrest on site. That looks like marijuana. Now it's like a question. It's a silly question too. But the point is, I'm for anything that keeps, people that don't, they didn't seem to be harming people. The neighborhoods seem to enjoy them. Didn't seem to be doing anything wrong. I wasn't forced to go there. I chose to go there. I thought about going back. I don't know. I don't think they should be locked up for that activity. Anyway, I thought that's what legalization was about, in fact. You might have seen recently that President Trump hosted in sort of a meeting, I think it was Saturday, with the likes of Joe Rogan and others, and issued an executive order to, I guess, reschedule psychedelics or something like that. And a lot of people are talking about it because, of course, stuff like that isn't often talked about in the White House. But my friend, Gene Lacey, wrote about it, and I'll have that linked in the show notes if you want to Google it now. The article is entitled Trickle Down Healing. I'll say that again. Trickle Down Healing, an open letter to the psychedelic community on Bicycle Day, which was 4/19. If you don't know what Bicycle Day is, apparently it's like a fucking psychedelic holiday that originated in Illinois. And I believe she explains it in the article. You should also check out episode 220 of the Cole Memo podcast at thecolememo.com because that episode features Gene Lacey. So we talk about advocacy, burnout, and balance, which is hard. Still something that I am learning to do. All right, folks, drop your comments. We're taking callers if you want to call in, colememo.com/live. Just saying, be right back. So Illinois officials planned to award almost $32 million to licensed cannabis companies in what some business owners said was a significant move, while others questioned whether it was too little, too late to save the startups. The headline from the Chicago Tribune is Illinois awards $32 million to cannabis companies, but some are still struggling to open. I'll have that linked in the show notes. Also, I promised you all that I would follow up on a lawsuit. I don't have much to follow up on, but I did get some high-level details just skimming the internet that I still don't know if they're correct, but we'll just read the headline. This is from chicagobusiness.com, and why don't we just throw it up on screen, shall we? Chicagobusiness.com. And like I said, we talked about this a bit last week. The headline is Lawsuit Accuses Verano of Exposing Protected Patient Data on Receipts. And again, all this stuff it's behind paywall, which I understand. These people have to make money somehow. In fact, this show is not free to do. It costs me money. I'm spending more than I make off of this whole endeavor. So if you're able to help support the show, because, licensing fees, distribution fees, equipment, all that stuff, it adds up. Check out colememo.com/support. You can literally just donate $1, or you can go to colememo.com/Patreon, which is $3 a month, and you can get early access to my content. There's also just a free tier, and I want to be clear, it's early access to my content. All of my content releases for free. I don't do paywalls like some of these outlets do. So yeah. Well, that's the headline. And from what I've been able to gather so far, wow, that's like spazzing out. I don't know if you guys saw that on my screen there. From what I've been able to gather so far, and to be clear, again, I have not been able to read the full lawsuit because all of the reporting I've seen is behind paywalls. I think I did find something just a little bit ago on Law 360 that actually has the lawsuit number, but again, I haven't had the chance to dig into that. Finally found the lawsuit number though. I have to look at now. I don't know if I know the county that it's in, but anyway, in order to read it all myself, I just wanted to say that what I am seeing suggests that the Illinois lawsuit is accusing Verano Holdings of basically having receipts that include details which the plaintiffs argue effectively turned a standard purchase receipt into a highly sensitive medical record. In short, I think it had personally identifiable information, which is really simple stuff in case you didn't know. It's things like your name, which probably goes without saying, right? That's how somebody could personally identify you, but your date of birth. And if it included things like that, which I don't know exactly what the allegations are, but from what I can skim at a high level through, from what the paywall stops me from reading it all, but it seems like that's what the lawsuit is about. But I'll just emphasize again, I can't independently verify the full details. These are just allegations, and they're going to have to work out all this in court. It'll be interesting to see what comes of it. I saw some other article today of a law firm saying that maybe you'll see more lawsuits like this against the cannabis industry. People, it's not like they're accusing them of purposefully doing it, but I guess inadvertently capturing and PII. So, and I guess violating HIPAA, I believe, is the ultimate allegation, which is weird in my opinion because people bring this up all the time. They'll be like, oh, medical cannabis, that's protected under HIPAA. It's but HIPAA is a federal thing and cannabis is federally illegal. And it's not a prescription. It's a recommendation. So is it protected under HIPAA? I don't know. Let's see what this lawsuit comes out to. I'll just reiterate for everybody that tuned in tonight that it helps a lot if you can hit the like button. I hope you enjoyed the show. Drop your comments now if you have anything to say before I wrap up, because I am about to wrap up. You can call in now at colememo.com/live if you want to say anything before we go. Looks like we've got a comment in. Oh, that was a while ago. John Voight said that's fucked up. And yeah, Genetic Memory Farms. I totally agree. It's always about business and never about consumers and patients. And what I mean by what I just read your comment out, I agree. What I mean by that is arrests, which again affect consumers and patients, which are one and the same. Consumers and patients, I guess. I don't know. I guess they're distinct. Some people just consume to consume. Some people consume because they need to, as a medicine. But anyway, well, I hope you all enjoyed the show. Feel free to reach out, drop a comment if you're watching this after the fact. I don't always, I try to respond to things. So I don't always see things on time is what I was going to say, but I do try to get back if people leave a constructive comment or question. Keyword constructive. If you're just talking shit, criticize me, please do it constructively. Because I love that. It would make the show better. Anyway, speaking once again of making the show better, please share your feedback with me in the comments. I'm curious. Is there something I'm doing that drives you nuts? Is there something that I'm not talking about that you'd like to talk about? I've been trying to throw that out there lately. That's why I also offer people to call in at colememo.com/live. You can be like, yo, did you hear about this? And we can check it out. So I'll just say once again, check out the show notes to read more. I always encourage you to not just take this show for gospel. The reason I take the time to always put the links in the stories that I reference is because I want you to come to your own opinions, look at it yourself, look at that information and like maybe compare it to other outlets. Just trying to encourage good hygiene when it comes to like consuming information in this weird time period. I texted somebody something the other day and they literally asked me like, is that AI? No. But that's crazy. This person didn't even know. I sent them something totally real. Is that AI? I've seen some things that have been like, I don't know. We're in a weird time. Yes, I did talk about that. I actually went to that dispensary that got raided. I talked about that. So go back and check that out. If people don't know what I'm talking about, sometimes I just do this and audio listeners are like, what were you talking about? I'm displaying a comment on screen right now. Brandon Krieger said, I saw you post earlier about a hemp dispensary that got raided. Did you talk about that tonight? Yes, I did earlier on in the episode. So check that out. Genetic Memory Farm says, maybe I'm crazy, but we need to focus on the right to home grow, even for renters. That would stop these arrests and truly level the playing field. That would be equity regardless of economic status. Yeah. I think it's complicated, but I'm down with it. I mean, all this stuff's complicated, right? That's never a reason not to do anything. The reason I said it's complicated is like, okay, renters, private property, but then you have like the federal government. And I think in New York, they are allowing people in apartments to grow. I could be wrong. I bet you my friend Aaron from the Elevated News podcast would know. Check out the Elevated News podcast, available wherever you stream podcasts. People also call it Two Dope Dudes. You can find them online at supportdopepeople.com. It's a fun local show. Support the media that you enjoy. That's why I try to give shout outs. On that note, I'll have to have a segment here in the future. I did one probably 10 or 15 episodes back where I literally just shouted out local Illinois creators. I should do that again or just release that as a standalone segment. It was in like the middle of an episode, so. But they made the list. I know that for sure. Well, once again, you can find all of my content at colememo.com. Hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're watching this after the fact and enjoyed or did not enjoy the show, drop a comment and I'll respond to it if it's constructive or funny or whatever. And I'll see you on the next episode, folks. Once again, we go live every Tuesday at 7:15 p.m. We went live a little bit earlier today. If you subscribe to me on YouTube channel, you'll always get those announcements. I announced it earlier. I said, hey, surprise, I'm going live at 6:45 instead of 7:15. Anyway, folks, hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.